Doreen, absolutely delighted to have you here at our second Hub Talks. And as I was saying, I hope you're even half excited as we are and our clients are today. So welcome, Doreen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm super excited to be talking later. It'll be a really, really interesting audience and a really good talk.
Fantastic. And as you know, our theme has been all around the Amazon effect. And I know you're going to go into lots of different detail, but if there was like one or two key messages that you were really trying to get the audience to take away, what would they be?
Okay, well, if you think about the Amazon effect can be, dependent on the industry you're in, it could be the Uber effect, it can be the Airbnb effect, it can be, if you're in banking, the Revolut effect. It is disruption, is what we're talking about. We're talking about large incumbent enterprises being disrupted by tech companies. And if there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about how to cope with disruption. Lots of organizations are spending an awful lot of money on digital transformation. I think the market is due to be $650 billion by 2021. It's growing at 18.5% year on year. Massive market. But what organizations primarily are doing is technology transformation. They're replacing technology platforms and they're kind of forgetting the most important parts of digital transformation. And the most important parts are the people, the culture, the strategy. When you're finished this, how will this make your brand experience different? How will it make Amazon's irrelevant to your customers? And that's what I really want to talk about today. And hopefully the audience will get a little bit of insight into some of the things that are super important when you're embarking on digital transformation. The technology is hugely important, but it is not the most important thing in digital transformation.
Okay. And interestingly, because you mentioned the Ubers and we're all about, these game-changing businesses that disrupt, but in your opinion, if we look maybe national or globally first and then locally, do you see any brands currently really understanding, and I mean really understanding, what their customer actually wants from them?
Technology companies obviously are the easy ones, right? You can always say, Amazon, because everybody says Amazon. And in the technology sphere, Netflix is probably one of my favorite, in that they're an organization that know what they do. And that might sound a little silly, but Amazon, they realize that they're in the entertainment business. So when Google recently announced a streaming gaming service, you see Netflix getting quite concerned and starting to adapt their content because they realize that they are in the entertainment business. They have a finite amount of time that customers have to spend with them, and they want to make sure that their content is the best it can be for their customers. They're using massive amounts of data to understand their audience and make sure that the content that they're creating is the right content for their audience. So Netflix is an easy one. In more traditional businesses, Warby Parker, who people don't really seem to know outside of the US, are an amazing glasses manufacturer. And they do something really simple. They just understand their niche very well. They understand their customers really well, and they make really fantastic glasses that are really well made, that are quite well priced. Their in-store experience is fantastic. Their online experience is fantastic. And they're just an organization that, it's not really a technology-led organization, but they fundamentally understand their value to their customers. They're kind of two brands that I think are really kind of leading in terms of customer experience.
I'm delighted that you mentioned Netflix and you mentioned something earlier around culture. It was Sheryl Sandberg had said that Netflix had written the most important document that ever came out of...
Everybody should read that.
Yes, I know. But again, we're hoping that we can give one or two key pieces of information for a lot of the digital transformation change agents and companies. How can they go about maybe disrupting a culture or getting that culture-led mission in these companies?
Well, the first part is look at the company that you're trying to do it in. It's very difficult to do that in companies that believe that their mission is to make more value for their shareholders in the short term, because that drives a certain type of thinking in an organization, and it's usually quite a short-term thinking. Once you figured out the organization and you figured out, okay, you've got an organization that might be family-run or has a visionary CEO or a very aligned leadership, without those things, without a CEO who's got a long-term vision for the organization and leadership that is aligned behind that, you're going to be having a lot of internal battles because there will be a lot of silos in the organization. Once you've got that bit out of the way, the other things that you need to focus on is empowering your teams. And as an example, I'm going to give in the talk later of Supercell. And Supercell are this, most people would know Clash of Clans, this amazingly successful mobile game. And Ika Paninen, who is their CEO, is on a mission to become the least powerful CEO in the world, which is an amazing ambition to have. And an example of how he's empowered his teams is that the name Supercell is actually based on cells. We're kind of loosely coupled that go off and do their own thing. But the team that were responsible for replacing Clash of Clans, which is their big revenue generator, were building the new game. They'd be a couple of months at this, and they said, "There's something not really right about this experience. We don't like it." So they did what the Nordics tend to do, is they went off to have a sauna to discuss this, which is a bizarre way to have a business meeting. But in the sauna, they decided, you know what, we're going to kill the game. And they didn't tell the CEO because he wasn't in the office that day and they didn't feel they needed to. That's an empowered team. And there is a bit of a myth about these unicorns in organizations, that you can get this one person that understands absolutely everything and is hugely creative and they're going to transform your organization. The reality is, I have yet to see an organization that has a lack of creativity. I've seen loads of organizations that have lack of empowerment to allow that creativity to flourish. So it's really about empowering your teams. That's the one thing that's hugely important. The technology is actually relatively easy. You just getting the culture and the balance of the two things is difficult. A balance of creativity and code. It's getting those two things right, because you can skew off to one side and you can get loads of developers and be really agile and do loads of stuff in sprints, but build the wrong thing because nobody's bothered to talk to a customer. Or you can have the creative side, which is really focused on making things beautiful and looking really nice, but kind of forgot the technology, and they get wiped out. So Sony with the Walkman is a perfect example. That you have a brand called Walkman and you get wiped out by something called the iPod. Like, that's incredible to me. They were just too late to move into digital music. They were a little too focused on what they had.
So what then, because this word gets thrown around a lot, you know, let's evangelize digital in this organization and let's put this, you know, let's disrupt the company, and there's this one head of innovation kind of sitting there lonely in the corner trying to do that battle. And we've all seen it. And I think
vanity innovation is what I call it.
Our lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
What do you think, you know, if we bring it back to Ireland, what do you think is needed between almost, say, a chief digital officer, a CMO and the board then to kind of gel that? Because I get you, the people are going to be the people making it happen, but is there another bit of secret sauce there?
The huge thing that seems to be embedded in all of these disruptors that are really changing organizations, that isn't in the legacy organizations that are being disrupted, is a vision of what they want to be.
Gotcha.
That's what's missing. It's not the technology. And you bring in a CDO, 80% of CDOs fail at their role. It's a very tough role because you're competing for resources with the CMO, CIO, Chief Commercial Officer, and if I'm a CEO, I have to give money to these parts of the business because they're making me revenue. And it's a very brave CEO that goes, I'm going to give it all to the Chief Digital Officer. It doesn't really work that way. But without having a clear vision of what you want to be, and you will inevitably get the customer experience vision wrong in 3 years' time, but a direction of travel for the organization that allows the organization to innovate towards something is hugely important, and it's missing in a lot of these digital transformation efforts. It's all about making the technology more efficient so we can build more products. Great. How does that differentiate your brand? What is that makes your organization different from your competitors? How does that make your organization disruption-proof, if there was such a thing? And it seems to be missing, certainly in the Irish market. There are very few brands that have a true vision of what they want to be, how their customer experience is going to be massively differentiated, and what the value to their customers is. A lot of the programs, the transformation programs that you see, start internally. They look at internal systems and they need to fix those systems. And the business case is written around being efficient. And they spend the national debt of Bolivia and take years trying to build this thing. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And it's really about cost efficiency. It's not about a vision and a differentiated customer experience. So that's where a CEO and a board can come together. And a chief digital officer can help enable it. But what seems to be missing is, how do you work with the CEO to understand their strategy for the organization? Work with the CMO to understand what are the brand pillars? What is it that makes your industry, your company unique? what is it that your customers value about your company? Then you can work with the CIO and understand what your technology is like, and work with your chief commercial officer to understand what the commercial targets are, and then come back with, okay, this is our vision. And then communicate that to the business to go, this is what it means for you and your job.
And this is what you need to do to execute it. So
without that, it becomes a technology program. And technology programs can be scary, because usually those technology programs are set up based on efficiency. We're going to make it efficient, which usually translates into we're going to get rid of people. And people naturally become defensive because the organization hasn't set a vision and hasn't communicated how those people can get to help the organization achieve that vision. And that's the thing that I think is certainly in Irish organizations, we have a huge opportunity to be disruptors ourselves. We have the most digitally savvy, one of the most digitally savvy populations in the world. And I think just as companies in Ireland, we need to step up to the expectation of our customers now.
And if I was to unpack that just slightly and simplify it a little, what you've described there is almost getting, if you look at the sporting world, getting in a coach like a Joe Smith or a Michael Checa like he did in Leinster 10 years ago, and as their job as the leader was set the vision, but then get the players, i.e. the people in the company, to deliver on it.
Yeah. And people to understand what their role is. The best analogy I heard was actually from someone in LinkedIn, their chief people officer in LinkedIn. He performed a brilliant exercise. He went around the board and he asked everybody to introduce themselves. And everybody introduced themselves, hi, I'm the CFO, and hi, I'm the CMO, and hi, and he said, you're all wrong. And how he explained it is, he said, it's like a football team, essentially, a company. He said, if you reward someone, if it's a striker and you reward them for scoring goals, they don't really care if the team lost if they scored 9 goals. And if you reward a defender for stopping goals, they don't really care if the team drew, as long as they stopped lots of goals. But overall, their role is to help the team win. And sometimes in business, we can reward some of that siloed behaviour. So really, it is down to culture.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for today. Thank you.
Cheers.